Good day. My name is David Brown, and I'm Ron's son. One of our favorite anecdotes of Dad is that he didn't smile a lot. And in later life, he used to tell us that it was a byproduct of his Parkinson's that he doesn't have much expression. But he was famous for having stern-looking photos. There was a picture we used to have of him looking very stern in his first principal photograph. And we had that pinned up on the back of a door in our house in Alberton, next to a poster of an eagle also looking very stern. And the caption on the poster said, "I am smiling." And we would always tease him whenever he had a stern-looking photo. We'd say, "You are smiling, hey, Dad?" Ironically, in many of the photos you are about to see, he actually is smiling. My sons Daniel and Samuel will remember on a recent trip that there were a couple of funny moments where he had very different expressions on his face than what we usually remember. Thanks for keeping it light, Dad. Many of you will know Ron Brown from school or work or church, but I'm one of the privileged few who has known Ron Brown throughout much of his life. In 2018, he documented his life in a well-written autobiography entitled A Life Well Lived. Please allow me to point out some of the highlights of this extraordinary life. Let's remember Ron Brown, the family man. Ron Brown, the husband of one wife. At this point, I want to thank Mom, Eileen. You've been there for Dad my entire life, in sickness and in health, for richer and poorer, for better, for worse. You have been his primary caregiver in these last few years, for which I fear he may have taken you a little for granted at times, but you are our hero. You were there for him, his soulmate, his life partner. Thank you, Mom. Let's remember Ron Brown, the father and mentor and friend and example that he was to Jean and I. Dad, you taught us so many things, and you walked the talk. I was privileged to be your apprentice on the many home improvement projects that we tackled over the years. Everything I know about tools, I learned from you. You were MacGyver in the flesh, Mr. Fix-It, who would fix anything and everything that broke. And when it was fixed, the fix would often be better than the original, and usually used a pop rivet or two. That was Dad's preferred tool of choice. Let's remember Ron Brown, the grandfather. Opa to Daniel, Samuel, James, Alex, Katie, and Amanda, and great-grandpa to Sana and Ndubs. Let's remember Ron Brown, the adventurer, the holiday maker, the caravanner. Let's remember Ron Brown, the builder. Here is a picture of Dad building the Great Wall of Ron around our first house in Pretoria. But he didn't stop there. He went on to be involved in the building project of every church he belonged to in one form or another, whether it was designing the hall or laying the bricks himself. He even went on to design and build a school. More on that later. In terms of hobbies, Dad loved his cars, and he has owned a few. His favorites were his first car, the Mini. Then there was the Spitfire that he bought on the day Jean was born, which he taught both Jean and I to drive on, double declutching and all. And of course, let's not forget his beloved Z4. Dad was also an excellent marksman, and he taught me everything I know about guns and how to shoot straight. He was an avid member of the Tac Shack Defensive Pistol Club, and I really enjoyed our Saturday shoots together. I don't know if it's a hobby, but we all know Dad loved a good pun. I found this one recently and I immediately thought it's something that he would appreciate. After retiring, Dad took up a new hobby of making cannons of all sizes. You can see samples of his handiwork on display at the front of the church. Once he made a cannon, he would then make the next one smaller, just to prove that he could. Some of you might have a Ron Brown Special Edition cannon. When you look at it, please remember the great man that made it. Ron Brown the soldier. He was a member of the Pretoria Highlanders in the Armoured Car Division, where he learned to drive and shoot armoured cars. It was here that he learned a valuable lesson that he shared with us often. When shooting the cannon, don't creep up to the target. Make bold adjustments. This life lesson has been exercised in his life on many occasions. Ron Brown, the breadwinner. Starting out as a math teacher, his ambitions took him through the ranks of deputy, principal, inspector, superintendent, and he ended his time at the TED as the Director of Education for the Southern Transvaal region, the youngest of his peers. Circumstances dictated that he then leave the TED, and he, along with Herbie Staples and Tony Matee, started Trinity House School, where Ron served as the Managing Director of the board and the first headmaster of the high school. This school has helped Ron touch the lives of many people who are now scattered all over the world. May they take the lessons learned and make the world a better place. One of his past executives commented to me recently that he still to this day operates on WWRD. What would Ron do, as he models his leadership style on Ron? And on some occasions I did too. Last but not least, I want us to remember Ron Brown, the Christian, the defender of the faith, baptized and saved by the blood of Jesus. Dad has served every church he has belonged to, whether it be in welcoming new members, serving as a society steward, or feeding the hungry in the soup kitchen. You see, Dad's love language was acts of service. Jean and I would both know that no matter where we were, no matter what time of day it was, if we needed him, he was there. I was blessed to be able to visit Dad over his recent 78th birthday, just over 3.5 weeks ago. What a privileged visit that was. And on this trip, one fond memory I have is the big hug that I gave him when I arrived, and the big hug that I gave him when I left a week later. Now, Dad is not a man that likes to be hugged, but he hugged me. And it was a great hug, my fondest memory. But my second memory of that trip, funnily enough, was his shoes. His leather felly shoes, which I'd never seen before, but apparently he bought them in Windhoek on a visit with Jean once. But why I fondly remember those shoes is because that one of our biggest jobs during the visit was to help him in and out of his wheelchair. And to do this, you have to look at his feet. And here we were, me, his son, Daniel and Samuel, his grandchildren, and his wife, putting his feet in and out of the wheelchair flaps, in and out of the car, up and down stairs, in and out of bed. But I saw a lot of his feet. And that reminded me that this man's feet have served. The Bible talks about the armor of God, and you have to wear the shoes of readiness. You have to be ready to serve. And he was ready. and he did serve. I hope you will remember him from some great part of his life. It was so sad to see this great man in my eyes be handicapped by disease and pain. His brain was fine, his head was sharp, but his body just could not keep up. And I could see the frustration, and I could see the pain and the suffering and the tears. Dad, you're in a better place now. You can rest easy from a life well lived. Lives have been influenced, and the world is a better place for having known you. And I am so proud to call you my father, my mentor, and my friend. Dad, it's not goodbye. It's goodbye for now. May God bless you all.